Okay, so we're going to talk about the lethal trauma triad. These are three problems that we're going to find with our patients in shock, hypoperfusion. Right, so we have, starting over here, we have hypothermia, coagulopathy, metabolic acidosis. So the three problems here, again, going to occur, say, the patient who is dealing with hypovolemia due to bleeding, some sort of external bleeding. Let's say they have arterial bleeding and they're losing sort of perfusion status. So one of the sort of beginning problems here is going to be hypothermia. And just to understand, all three of these problems are going to make the other problems worse. So this is this sort of feedback loop that's continuing to make the patient circle and circle and circle down the drain as we kind of think of it. So hypothermia, we can sort of talk about in the beginning as the patient becomes more hypothermic. And think about why, right? Blood carries heat. And also, when we perfuse and get oxygen and glucose to the cells, they do metabolism, which also creates heat. Both of these things are impacted by the bleeding. So the patient winds up in hypothermia. And this is going to then lead to the patient's coagulation cascade being affected. It's not important why the heavy sort of science behind this, but the ability for the patient to create clots to coagulate is going to be affected by the hypothermia. And also with the hypothermia, we're going to find low blood going, lower than normal blood going to the cells. The cells are now going to work on anaerobic metabolism, not aerobic metabolism like they're supposed to. And so you can find that that hypothermia is also going to make the acidosis worse as well. It's going to make the cells switch into that dirty metabolism that produces lactic acids. And so from that hypothermia, you can see how both of these are getting worse. From coagulation problems, the patient who is already bleeding and becoming hypoperfused because of bleeding problems is going to continue to bleed. So the coagulation problem is going to be a real issue. And the acidosis is only going to make the coagulation worse. It actually affects the clotting cascade as well. So you can see again, all three of these things are going to continue to kind of make each other worse. The acidosis also is going to impact the patient's ability to perfuse. The myocardial performance, the vessel performance is going to be worse. So this is the patients that are just going to continue to get worse, and the mortality is something like 15 to 20% if patients have all three of these present. So this is a real problem.